If your revenue's stalling in your business and you're not sure what moves to make, well, the problem isn't ideas. The problem isn't the market. The problem might not even be execution. The problem is noise. And in this video, I'm going to walk you guys through how to eliminate the noise and how to find the one exact thing, the one thing, and the only thing you should focus on in your business this next 90 days to get growth back. All right, guys, I'm Trevor Mock, the CEO of a company called Carrot.com. And we've been fortunate enough over the years to hitting 5,000 lists 5 years in a row. Being one of the fastest growing software companies in America, the fastest growing software company in the state of Oregon multiple times. And I've been through lots of challenges just like y'all have been on growing business. Remember, prior to Carrot, I had several businesses. Out of the probably 4 or 5 companies that I had, 2 of the 5 completely failed. One ended up doing really, really good. And then the other 2 were kind of mediocre. And through that journey and through the journey of coaching other clients and growing Carrot myself, I've learned where we start to go off the rails, right? Where we start to go off the rails. And also, you remember, what was it that actually brought the initial growth in the first place? Because when we start to grow these companies, we start to add on more and more and more, which we think is opportunity, but it actually ends up manifesting as noise. And that noise spreads our focus. That noise spreads our resources. That noise starts to put us into a sense of false security that more equals better. If we're not moving towards our goals, maybe we should add more on top of there. If we're not moving towards our goals, we're not hitting our goals, maybe we should work harder. Maybe we should work more. But the answer usually I found is working less. And I'm going to walk you through a concept that I heard back in 2010 from a friend of mine named Kyle. So I was at a mastermind in Florida at St. Pete, Florida. The group that I've been running for years with my former business partner, Patrick Riddle, called Amplify. And we were there right there on the beach. And Kyle Graham came up and he said, hey, I'm going to teach you about this concept that I learned called the theory of constraints. And at that time, none of us had heard of the theory of constraints. We were all newer in our journeys. I was in my early to mid 20s. And I honestly took that presentation, set it to the side because I didn't really think it was all that relevant and important to me at that point. Because my business was growing. I wasn't having a growth issue, I thought. The challenge that comes, like I said, is when things work, we pile on more things because we go, man, maybe because that worked, I can do more. And at some point, the more is the very thing that makes things not work for us. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through a few different things. And at the high level, the theory of constraints is this one thing. It's a management principle. It's a manufacturing principle to say if you want to improve the output of the thing, the output of a manufacturing facility, the output of a marketing campaign, the output of whatever system it is you always find the slowest moving part and optimize that and that only. But in our businesses, we're oftentimes optimizing or doing projects on 2, 3, 4, 5 parts of the machine when only one parts of the machine actually matters. So it means we overhire because we think we ran out of bandwidth and our margins go down, our frustration goes up. It means we spread the resources thin and everybody's frustrated saying we feel like we're working harder but getting further behind. And I'm going to show you how the theory of constraints can unlock you. So I'm going to dive into the computer, dive into the iPad here. And if you guys are new to the channel, hit subscribe on the YouTube side or in the podcast side. And on the podcast side, I'm going to walk through the visual that I'm showing you. So if you're listening to this in your car or on a jog, amazing. You're going to get a ton of value on the audio side. If you're not, head over to YouTube, find me, Trevor Mock, M-A-U-C-H. Look up the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula podcast and find this episode on how to grow your business when growth has stalled. Okay, so pretend you've got a machine here. It's a pipe. Water's coming in the front and you've got an output, or it's a manufacturing flow, or it's a marketing funnel. And on the front end, you've got inputs. And on the back end, if you got outputs, and oftentimes we want to grow the output, right? So output for your marketing campaign might be revenue. It might be customers, adding more customers to the mix. And if the output isn't where we want to go, we can't just randomly start to pick and choose things that we want to fix. And that's oftentimes what happens. We oftentimes get in those marketing meetings, or we have an idea and we go, I think we should do this. I think we should do this. And what if we do something that optimizes this step here, like the second step from the end? Okay, maybe it's the demo flow in your software, or maybe it's the appointment that your sales rep or acquisition rep hops on if you're a real estate investor. You're going to optimize that. But what if that is not the constraint? You could optimize that all day long. You can increase your close ratio. You can increase the demo ratio. You can increase all that stuff. But if the real issue is 2 steps back, which is the actual constraint, okay, your growth, your output will not increase at all or in a very, very little amount by optimizing the wrong part. Okay. So your first step is we want to identify what's the constraint in this flow. So if you're looking at the visual version of this, it's a giant carrot that looks like a funnel, and right there in the middle, you can see this part here. It looks like it's pinched a little bit. There's a bunch of potential things that can come in from the top and the bottom right here. Right, you see these on the left side of that constraint. It actually has more potential. Let's say this has a potential to put 50 units a week in, and that has a potential to put 40 units a week in. So really our flow at this point can move up to 40 units a week. But let's say this over here is 20 units a week, and our goal over here is 30 units a week. Well, we know that no matter what, even if all these are 40 and 30 and 30, we know that the main issue is this thing that is constraining the system at 20 units a week or 20 phone calls a week or 20 offers a week or whatever it is. Okay. So what I like to do is I like to use an 80-20. Okay. 80-20. I'm going to say 80% of my resources this quarter go towards solving that one constraint. 20% goes towards our everyday work or maybe potentially looking at another constraint. But I'm even going to guard you and say that 20% better really just be focused on your everyday work and even pull some of that away if we have to solve that constraint deeply. Okay. So there's a couple things I want you to do. I'm going to walk you through now. How do you identify the constraint in your business? How do we identify that constraint in your revenue flow? Because even though I knew about the theory of constraints in 2010, and then when I had challenges in revenue over the years, including one in recent history that we're working through, and I got a chance to dive back in with our marketing team on Carrot, the software company, and we're bringing theory of constraints in. That's why it's hot in my mind, y'all. If you're in my Epic coaching group, or if you're in my circle, if you listen to my podcast, the cool thing about the YouTube channel and the podcast is I don't only share the wounds, right? Like or the scars. So what a lot of people say is like, share the scars, not the wounds. The scars are the thing that's in the past, is completely healed. It's way in the past. Okay. That's mostly what most people share on YouTube, but I'm going to share a lot of that too, because it's like you learn a lot through the scars. You're beyond it. You've already won through that, and you're on the other side of that hill. The wounds are the thing you're working on right now, the problems you're trying to solve right now. And there's a lot of value in learning about the wounds or the challenges that your mentors, coaches are actually trying to solve right now. So I'm going to be sharing 80% scars here, things I've learned in the past using theory of constraints, and then 20% wounds where it's like, okay, this is on my mind right now, and here's how I'm approaching it to use it again in my business to get this part of the business cranking. Okay. So how do you identify that constraint? Well, I'm going to open up these steps here for y'all, and we're going to go through the steps. Okay. So the first thing is you're gonna treat this like a map. Okay. So you want to map the flow. Okay. The first thing is we want to map the flow. So what does mapping the flow actually mean? Well, mapping the flow is just like what I walked you through. You want to pull away and go, step one is this. Step two is this. Right? Step three is this. And I've got a process I call the revenue pipeline analyzer. I'm sharing it here on the screen, but we're going to put the notes thing here on YouTube somewhere. We'll put a link to this resource. If you want to go grab this resource, print it off, and use it to analyze your own flow in your own business. If you're a flipper or a wholesaler, or if you're not, you can customize it for your business. But there's a resource for you. And we do have another YouTube video that we'll talk about at the end, and I'll kind of seed it in here on this channel. I've got another YouTube video called The Biggest Revenue Unlock. Check it out. We'll link it up at the end of this video. Okay. But step one is map the flow. We've got to pull away and say, here's all of the steps. Here's all of the handoffs to make this work. So if you're a house flipper or wholesaler, the first thing is a lead comes in probably, right? Or a marketing activity happens. We sent out this many direct mail pieces, and then a lead happens, right? And then an appointment happens, then an offer happens, right? And then a contract happens, and then a close happens. So map every step in that process. And then you're going to want to go through and put your current numbers down, but that brings in step two now, is pull 90 days of your numbers, 90 days of your numbers. Okay, after you've mapped that process, and you're going through a process like the revenue unlock, I want you to put in your last 90 days numbers, your averages potentially. Okay. I want you putting your actual numbers in there, and I want you putting your conversion rates. What is the conversion rate from step 1 to step 2? What percentage of them make it over there? Or what is the speed or whatever it is that you're measuring? Okay. If you're actually measuring a manufacturing process, you're probably not going to do conversion rate from step 1 to 2. You might do the amount of time it took to get from step 1 to 2. Okay. And then you want to set a benchmark. Okay, what is the benchmark? How should that thing be performing? Okay, how well should that thing be performing? And we can't really determine the constraint unless we know how well that thing should be performing. So inside of our revenue pipeline analyzer, we have what the estimates should be, let's say for a house flipper or wholesaler, and what your benchmarks might be. Once you know your benchmarks, then you're going to red, yellow, green things that are at benchmark, they're a red. Things that are a little bit below benchmark, they're a yellow. Things that are at benchmark are green, and then things that are way away from a benchmark are red. And then step 3 in here, after you've mapped the flow and you've pulled your last 90 days of numbers and put your averages in there or your current trend in there, now you want to choose the constraint. Okay, what is the one thing that actually, if you were to fix that or get it up to the benchmark or get it closer to the benchmark, and you look at it and go, yeah, there's a real opportunity. Like, I know we can grow that thing to this number if we put focus on it. Okay, if we put real focus on it and eliminate messing with the other parts of the system, I know we can get it up to that number. Then do the math. Okay, so as you're going through and looking at your revenue pipeline analyzer, let's say you've got 2 things that are red. Okay, let's say that there's 2 things that are red. Let's pretend that this is a red over here. Well, do the math on it and ask the question, well, could I get this one over here from a 10 to a 25%, like over the next 90 days? What's the chance that that's going to happen? You might be insanely confident you can if you can put the focus. You might go, well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure we could probably get it to 20. Okay. Well, if everything else stayed the same, but all you did was take this from 10% to 20%, okay, what would that equal in extra output? Write that number down. Then go to the next thing that you think might be a constraint. It's a red or a yellow. Do the same thing. If everything else is the same as it currently is, you don't have to adjust it at all. And then you guess, well, how much higher do I want to take that one? What's realistic? What do I think we could actually do in 30, 60, 90 days? Do the math on that. And then pick which one actually makes the largest impact with the right amount of work and investment. And then that's your one constraint. Okay. So that is number 3. Number 4 now is, how do we tackle that thing ruthlessly? We're gonna tackle it with a 2-week sprint. Okay. Once you pick that constraint, that gets a dramatic amount of your focus for the next 2 weeks. Okay. You get as many resources as you possibly need. Take them off of projects, pause projects if you have to, or if they're optimizing other parts of that marketing or revenue machine, pause them, and then put every resource you need to hit that constraint hard for that next 2 weeks, even 3 to 4 weeks if you need it, if it was that large. Okay. Because that is the number one constraint that's going to make the biggest difference. And when we start to have businesses or teams that feel really busy and you feel like you're running in mud and everyone's busy, but you're not going anywhere, like I said, it's usually not ideas or maybe even execution purely, it's noise. And it's the team might be capable of executing that well if you as a leader were able to then drive them focus on that one constraint. Okay. Last thing is, once that constraint's fixed, then you rerun that all over again. And so your entire motion, your entire job as a leader is to basically break things. Okay. Once you unlock this constraint and that grows, let's say you get that up to 40, you find the next constraint. Let's say it's this one, that's a 30. Bam. Now you put resources there, because as soon as you unlocked that one, now that is broken and you need to go fix that, because that's the new constraint. Once this is fixed and that gets up to 50, let's say you do the math and figure out the next one. You just broke something else now because you have more throughput going through there now. Now you fix this one. And so it's really cool because it actually empowers you as a leader, empowers you as a team member to be able to always pull back and say, okay, are we working on the right thing? Okay, are we working on the right thing? If we put 80 to 90% of our effort for a 2 to 4 week period of time to fix one thing and fix it insanely well, to move it from where it is to move it to benchmark or goal, what impact would that make? And let's make that effort. Okay, I want you guys to think one thing before we wrap this video. I want you to think to a time in your business or your career where everything was crushing it, right? Where your business was growing really fast, where a goal was hit or a campaign was working well. And 9 times out of 10, I like to challenge you. Very likely it grew because you had intense focus on one product, one marketing channel, one sales motion for a long time, a year or longer. Okay. So it's that same level of intense focus that's going to get you through this growth phase or this slump. And it's not gathering more ideas. It's making a decision to get clear on that single constraint, eliminating the noise, and then hyper focusing and squashing that constraint. All right, guys, if you like this video or this podcast, head over to my YouTube if you're on the podcast side of things. If you're on the YouTube side of things, you like listening to these things on the fly, go check out the podcast over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Entrepreneur Freedom Formula. And then check out the video at the end of this that dives deeper into that revenue unlock process. Print off that worksheet, use that thing every single month to identify the right next constraint and take it from there. Or right here in this video, we'll link up the link to that resource in the description show notes. So if you guys like this kind of stuff, pop in the comments box. Do you like me diving into this? Is this a good teaching style for you? What are the topics you want to hear about? Let me know. I'm pumped to be able to put this content out for you every couple weeks or every week, and it's really help you go through that journey of building a business of freedom and impact, a business that serves you rather than you serving it. And if you're in need, if you're challenged on growing through that, what I want to encourage you to do is go back and listen to the first several episodes of the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula podcast, or here on YouTube, the first several episodes of the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula YouTube series, because it breaks down my model of the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula and how to grow a business that doesn't trap you, a business that you don't serve, but it serves you, a business that unlocks freedom and impact, the 3 key things that have to be a part of your business to make that happen. And then I walk you through the revenue levels from 0 to 10 million plus. Your business breaks at 3s and 10s. And if you're in a 0 to 100,000 phase, or 100,000 to 300,000, or 300,000 to a million to 3, 3 to 10, 10 to 30, I have videos and podcast episodes for every single one of those phases, walking you through exactly what you need to do to work through that phase. Go check out those episodes as well. All right, guys, pop comment below. What's the number one constraint right now in your business after going through this? And what is your biggest challenge on that? All right, we'll see you in the next episode.